Hold on tight.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
We are officially 6 weeks out.
6 weeks.
I feel like 6 weeks is kind of a big a part of this timeline because you're like at 12 weeks out, everything is so far away. It feels like you have so far to go. And 6 weeks out is like, this is getting real. I feel like you're able to start pushing it, start seeing more of your lines, your definition. And to me, everything gets easier at 6 weeks out just because it's like a stone throws away.
Yeah. Like even when Chantel said, when you had commented, you said something on Instagram about, it's next month.
Yeah, like my show's next month.
Like it's
I
next
know.
month.
Yeah. I always love being able to say that because it's just like, it's almost here. It's just makes it more real. It's fun.
Well, and there's no denying that prep is hard. And I feel like doing something that's really hard for 6 weeks for your brain is just like really manageable.
Yeah.
But like, for example, when I very first started like getting on the road to being back to competing, and I'm like, well, I think I'm like 56 weeks out. Like that's overwhelming.
A long time.
The time that goes into that. So now it just feels so fun.
Yeah. It is fun being able to dial in more of the details of things and like the posing, as you get tighter, posing gets more fun and you're able to tweak things a little bit more with more lines coming out. That's always fun. I think that's like one of my most favorite parts, getting closer to the show, is just every time you pose, you feel really good. You generally feel really good, which is fun.
I feel like posing today was probably the first time this prep that I was feeling that feeling of like, oh, I could change this. And where you could see before, I was just looking at these like broader lines, like where are my shoulders, where are my glutes, and just this like outline. And now I'm starting to see more of the details. Yeah. And it's more fun, but it's also like, okay, we need to clean this up. Like details here that need some work.
Yeah. It's also when you realize like it's pedal to the metal, like it's 6 weeks away. Like it's time to really, you should always be nailing everything, but it's really time to buckle down, be super focused.
Because you're 2 weeks away from being 4 weeks out. So,
yeah, exactly.
And I always subtract 1 week from everything because I don't plan on ever losing anything.
Peak
week, we might even be gaining a little bit when we're filling out. So as far as I'm concerned, we're 5 weeks out. So even better, specifically, what's going on in your preps right now?
I'll go first. I'm my body, in the past, 2 weeks, I've been seeing pretty consistent changes, just like visual changes. It's funny, my weight, because my cycle, like for the past 10 days, I swear my weight is just up in the mornings because I wake up really early and I'm just pre-cycle. But visually, I've been seeing, progressive changes each week. And I've kind of just been fairly consistent with the same macros I've been at for the past month and a half, and doing different refeeds every week. One was a little bit more minimal. This week was a little bigger, but kind of just maintaining things right now for the most part, but seeing good changes. I'm kind of just slow and steady right now.
And I feel like for you, even it's like you might have saw a new low like once 3 weeks ago, like 119. And then last week you see it twice. And now this week you see it 3 times. And it's
so I'm like, all right.
Before it'll be like seeing that 7 days in a row and seeing like another new drop. So
yeah, it really is just like this process, just slowly. And that's one thing, like with working with clients, it's funny. So many clients will be like, oh, I didn't get a new low this week. I'm like, but you hit, your low weight from last week 3 times this week. So that's progress,
I think people just have to get away. I have some clients in the beginning who I think want to see a new low every day,
It is. And if it goes up, it's cool when they finally like get it. They're like, oh, my weight spiked. Oh, I'm ovulating. Or, oh, I'm cycle. or, oh, I had a lot of sodium and I didn't drink much water, or I got crappy sleep.
Yeah. And then me, I'm like, yay, you're learning. This is
Right?
what you have to do. It's like this new heightened awareness of your body that these clients learn. And, before doing a program like this, people aren't aware of those things. That's one really cool thing is when clients reach that new level of awareness with their body.
And the process too, because I think the reason why people are looking for a new low every day or every week is just because of the misinformation or the crash diet they've done in the past. Like
100%.
maybe before they did like a really extreme fad diet, so they lost a lot of water that week. So they were seeing like drops every day, where I feel like most of my women will probably see more around 2 to 3 new lows a month versus like 4 to 6 new lows a month. A lot of times it might be like a 1.5 to 2 pound new low for that time. But if you're looking for them to be super frequent, I just feel like that's when people get really discouraged.
Yeah.
Because they're like, what am I doing wrong? I'm like, just overthinking the weigh-ins.
Yeah.
You're not anything wrong with the fat loss side. So.
And I reminded like one of my clients the other week from what you were saying, Lindsay. I think it was on your stories. You were mentioning like you compare month to month, like your last pre-cycle or post-cycle weight to your next month's post-cycle weight. And that's what you have to compare to, because everything in between is just not accurate. It really isn't.
Well, and it's so funny, even like, I'm a coach, I know these things, but even Lindsay had to remind me, it was like, I think it was December pre-cycle versus January. And it was like 4 pounds difference or something like, I hadn't seen a new low for a while, but she was like, hey, pre-cycle, you were this. So even us that we know this, we still sometimes need to remind ourselves
need the constant reminder
to calm down.
Yeah.
Well, I think right before your cycle, which is interesting. Side note, I know Carrie's about to start her cycle. Chantel, you're about to start yours. I'm 3 to 4 days out from mine. So I think we're
all like synced.
So the good thing about that though, is we'll finish our cycle like the week before. So we're going to be in like our optimal time.
Really good. Yes. Oh, I've done the math. I've looked into that. So I'm like,
yeah, I have too. That's like one of the first things I look at when I start prep. I'm like, okay, is my cycle on track?
Yeah. I think it's worthwhile, especially when you're trying to really like get 1% more out of your body. Like for you, Chantel, like you're already at such a good place to try to just perfect everything. I think it's worthwhile to pick shows that line up well with your cycle. Even if you really wanted to do a show because of whatever other reason, I think that the cycle I don't think it's going to necessarily break someone, but it can make a big difference on how you're looking and feeling visually on show day. Even just 1 pound of water can be
just kind of water is a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Well, same when people get upset about 1 pound, I always picture like a 16-ounce like Starbucks cup full of fat because it's pound. And I'm like, would you be sad to just like remove this cup of fat from your body? Because to me, a 1 pound seems like a lot. It doesn't seem like a little bit. It seems like so much.
No, when I posted on my Instagram, I think I did like what a pound of fat looks like. And I had a couple people be like, oh my gosh. And it was like, are you still sad about only losing a pound? Wow. Or and it showed muscle, like what a pound of muscle looks like.
Of solid fat, just fat. Yeah, it's a lot.
So prep's going well then. We also are working now. Chantel and I are working with Dr. Joe. So we brought in kind of another set of eyes. Chantel and I have peaked now for 4 shows together.
Yeah.
I think, or 5. So we're kind of just taking our historical information and knowledge and combining it with some new ideas from him.
Yeah.
So we're excited to kind of just see what other ideas he may integrate and how we can bring them onto the team. So we'll keep you guys posted. So far, nothing's really changed.
It's just kind of like, well, and that's, I mean, my body is pretty easy, honestly. Let's be real. It's an easier body to work with. So it's really like, I'm just loving having 2 pairs of eyes on me. I feel really at peace. I'm like, all right, like I've got like, just 2 pairs of eyes to just catch anything that's maybe falling between the cracks or whatever, and it's exciting kind of just having maybe, some new perspectives thrown in there, change is fun. So.
And I think a confidence booster, even because I anticipate him to be pushing your carbs kind of for peak week, which I feel like is something that we've always been kind of like, you and I are really good friends too. So I like have my coach role and then like like we're both coaches together, we're friends together. So I even like sometimes like you're like, no, I really want higher fat.
Yeah.
And I think there was like some compromising on both of our sides. And I think having three people just kind of, it's almost like you get outvoted.
Yeah.
You know, where it's like, well, two people think this. So whatever the two people are, Annika, Sam, and I, like, we deal with that a lot on the management side of Fit Bliss. When it used to just be Annika and I, if we had a difference of opinion, it was like, you know, where do we go from here? Where
Right.
now it's like, wherever the opinion is, we just kind of like, what do you think? What do you think? And then kind of go with whatever majority says. So I'm excited to just kind of play with things a little bit further.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
So yeah. And Carrie, what's going on with you?
With me, I gotta say this is probably the hardest week mentally. I just had to kind of have a mindset shift. I didn't see a new low this week. And that kind of got to me a little bit, but I
But
did.
you did see, same as Chantel, didn't you see your new low multiple times this week? Even
Yes. So I did. Yeah, I did hit 122 multiple times this week, but I just feel, I had some personal, pretty emotional days. Things happen, and then I am pre-cycle. So I've just kind of felt a little just kind of off from all that. Not feeling as tight as I feel like I have been, but I'm following everything. I'm doing everything I can. So I think I also just kind of took some pressure off. And, like we had discussed, Lindsay, I said, Wasatch, this is my first show back in 2 years. I'm going to bring my best physique. I do know that, but it's not my last one. So, I'm going to bring the best that I can, but I shifted my mindset to, I'm going to put in the work and I'm not going to stress. I'm just going to go with the flow. Like there are going to be times where my body's a little bit more stubborn. I just think, I carry my weight in my legs and I see it on transitions and I'm like, I gotta get that. So we stepped things up this week, but yeah, I think I just need to keep going. And, this prep is way different in the fact that, my cardio is so much different. And so I think mentally, I'm just trying to battle that where like past competitions, I've been ready 4 weeks out, super, super lean. But that wasn't the best for me. So just adjusting. I mean, it's just, dealing with that, but I'm in a good place.
And I think probably even you don't realize how much the cycle stuff is hitting you right now.
Yeah, because
I feel like once you come out to the other side of that and you see like that new big drop, your body's able to adjust it to everything that we're adding. I feel like that even as much as we think we're controlling the emotions around the water retention around cycle, I think it really has such an impact. And then it comes off and it's like, oh, wow, girl. Like,
yeah,
look at you.
I'm definitely feeling that. So
yeah,
I think it's always just this like fear in the back of our heads that it's not going to come off. Like, I don't know what it is, but every time pre-cycle, you're always just like, well, let's just hope it comes off. And you're like, it will, like every time it does. But for some reason I don't know. Yeah.
Well, it's just a lot of pressure anyways, just to have a deadline. And I think being in the role of coaches to where we're leading other people, like by no means do we want to like get on stage and have anyone be like, wow, why is she here? So it's just like so much pressure that adds to the equation. But I do think like last week, Carrie, you deloaded. We took your training volume down just a little bit. We've been very calculated. And now we're doing a 2-week where we're going to kind of, go pedal to the metal a little bit and push your body really hard to see a little bit more progress. So then we can back off and go a little bit more moderate again.
Yeah.
So I'm confident.
The deload was good. I mean, the deload was definitely needed. And I'm just trying to take it a day at a time. So really enjoy the process rather than be like focusing on that 6 week. I'm just enjoying being an athlete and pushing myself in the day to day.
And it's so important to find that balance, because if we get into too negative of a headspace, or where we're putting too much pressure, it can start to negatively impact our results too.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I have had times and preps and cycles where I'm even just like, you know what, I'm just not even going to check my physique for a couple of days until my cycle comes and everything normalizes a little bit, because it just ends up like bringing me down, and I feel better about just in high-waisted leggings and regular clothes. I feel great. So I'm like, no need to check your abs this morning and see what's going on. You can check after your cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I don't even weigh myself as much, because I'm just like, why? I'm like, for me, yeah, I just, if I wake up and I feel puffy, like my hands feel kind of puffy, or I just feel kind of heavy, I won't even weigh. And actually, typically I weigh post workout, because I feel like that keeps my readings more consistent, whether I'm pre-cycle or not. I feel like if I am pre-cycle and holding water, once I work out, it gives me a more accurate reading compared to like other times. So I've always just enjoyed weighing myself post workout, but I train early in the morning so I can make that consistent, but yeah, but sometimes I don't even weigh myself, because it's just not worth it.
Well, and even the funny thing is, like, my weight hasn't like spiked. Like, I think I saw 123 once. So my weight's the same, but I just feel, like it just feels heavier.
Which is a good sign that it is cycle related.
Yeah.
Because you're doing so much, you're doing everything right. You're really in a good place. So for your weight not to be spiking is actually showing that it's dropping.
Yeah.
Because normally it does spike. So yeah, I think that our next chat will be a week after cycle. We're going to be able to have a really clear view of where we're all at, and that will be really exciting.
I'm excited.
4 weeks out. That'll be 4 weeks.
Yes, that's going to be the exciting one. For my prep, I'm also pre-cycle, and I am a little bit watery, but I've had such a good last 10 days of prep that it's like not even my cycle can bring me down. I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling on track. I've like crossed over that barrier of worrying if the timeline's going to be okay for me. Like, I feel pretty good that everything's going to come together. So even though things aren't maybe as tight as they were like a week ago, I'm happy to be feeling like I have a place at the table.
Yay.
And I saw several new lows last week. I broke into the 130s. I think, Chantel, you mentioned something along the lines of this earlier, but I feel like sometimes when you're retaining water in midsection from your cycle, you can see where you're at based on how you're looking visually at the gym, more so like in your upper body and different details like that. So I've just really learned to kind of focus more in on that than like how my midsection is looking right around my cycle, because it's never going to look how you want it to.
Yeah. I think that's a really good, because you don't typically hold it in your arms, or
and this close to comp, you're going to see changes in your arms every single week. So I was more so this week, like, am I seeing my rear delt? I'm like, okay, so things are happening. It's good. Yeah. Exactly. So
that's good.
I'm just keeping an eagle eye out for all of the other little ways, and ready. Same as I said last time we were talking about cycles, though, a month ago, my pre-cycle weight is down 4.5 pounds than it was this time last month. So I'm just like,
that's huge.
Yeah, I'll take it.
That's good.
We'll see what happens. I also went and saw Heidi this week and picked out my fabric for my new suit. So that's another thing. None of my suits, like a couple weeks ago, I put on one of my suits that was made in 2016, and I have so much more muscle and size now, which is, I'm so grateful for it. But putting on a suit that's like 2 sizes too small is not. It wasn't a deal. I texted my coach and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be ready. We need to add cardio. And it's like, what's going on? I'm like, well, I put on a suit that's too small for me. And he's like, yeah, okay, don't do that for one. But so I'm just super excited that getting a suit is going to make it feel that much more real. And
that's the fun part. Like, that last month is like all the fun parts. Like, booking your hair, makeup, your nails, suit, all that stuff.
Yeah. I don't actually love all that stuff that much. I like the training stuff more, but I'm excited to do it.
Yeah, it's funny. The more that I do this, the more I just love the journey of prep, even more than stage day or anything anymore. I don't even do it for that anymore. It's like, I don't do it. I don't do it to get tan and all glittered up and everything. Like, yeah, I want to like bring my best, but it's almost like viewing it more like I want to kick ass, like not just like feel pretty up there. You know, it's like a difference, like I'm going in, like I'm going into war kind of a feeling. And, you know?
Well, yeah. And it's cool to like to get those stage shots and to like compare.
Yeah.
Where like, I want to do this, so then I can go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. It's like, so like me versus me, you know, I'm like, all right, Chantel, how do we do? You know? And yeah.
Where I think some people really do, especially in the beginning, getting ready for a competition, especially as an adult woman, is almost like getting married or going to the prom, or
yeah, really.
It is an excuse to get really dolled up. And I think that some people really enjoy that. But
yeah, I used to more. Now I'm just kind of like,
a lot of work, especially if it's a 2-day, which won't happen to you guys as pros or at a regional level. But getting ready for national shows this year, I'm like really hoping to make it work at a 1-day event.
Yeah, it's a lot. In a row.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so should we hop into our topic today?
Yes.
Today we are going to discuss flexible dieting during prep. We're going to go over some of the pros and cons of flexible dieting versus meal plans, and all of the good nutrition related content. So let's get going.
All right. Well, I'm going to go over first the main differences between flexible dieting and if it fits your macros. And people may be like, oh, well, I thought that was the same thing. Well, it's not actually, but so the main differences are, so with flexible dieting, you are paying attention to more details. So you're paying attention to where your micronutrients are, as well as fiber. And when you do that, that assures that you are getting in, more whole foods into your diet, paying attention to those alone. So your macros would be like the ones that the athletes on the Fit Bliss team that we have our athletes pay attention to is vitamin C, vitamin A, and calcium. So we want to meet at least 75%, but I really try to always meet 100% of mine. And I honestly try to challenge all of my clients to meet 100%. I don't think it's that hard meeting your macros at 100%. So, to be honest, most of the time I'm like 300%, 500% on a lot of them. And then, so if it fits your macros, that's like it kind of gets the bad rap of people fitting in the French fries, the ice cream, the more junky type foods. And so that's where it gets the bad rap, that if it fits your macros. But really, the most important part is finding just a good balance between the two. You can, and the coaches on the Fit Bliss team, what we preach to our clients is that you can fit in the treats and those foods that aren't considered healthy, as long as your macros are being met and your fiber is met. So, and fiber, we say to at least get in 25 grams. So I think staying about 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day is really good. And that's just going to make sure that you're getting in those whole foods, you're optimizing digestion. But yeah, if you're able to fit in a little bit of some chocolate chips, a little like ice cream pop, or whatever you want to, as long as those are being met, then there should be nothing wrong with that. What do you guys think?
I feel like, especially when flexible dieting and if it's in your macros was first popularized, there was a lot of people who were just like trying to have an entire day of like, they'd have like donuts and then a protein shake and then like chicken with fries. And it was just like, how much junk can I fit in and like hit my macros? And I think there are some people who still do that, but I think what there is more is people who maybe are on more of like the meal plan side of things or like the clean eating side of things, who view anyone who does flexible dieting as people who are doing the fit as much junk as you can into your day. And like you said, for us, having the insurances that people are hitting those micronutrients and the fiber, it just is how we know that they're not doing that.
Right. And I also wanted to, like, um, I love the flexible dieting approach because it gives people even more freedom within their diets, because we all have our preferences with things. We all, some people don't like sweet potato and they prefer rice. Then, hey, you can do that, and so, and it teaches people so much about, foods that are similar, and it teaches them how to just, it's better for sustainable results, because you're able to constantly be able to switch things up while staying on track. And I feel like that helps people stick with things a lot better, just being able to allow them that freedom, but yet balance and structure at the same time,
I agree. And the other thing too, which it's nice, like, I don't know about, I'm guessing with you guys as well, but you could say, but one really cool thing about it is the foods I eat during prep are really the foods that I eat in off season too.
Oh yeah.
So I'll have bigger portions, or I'll allow myself to have more, treats or things. But really it's just eating the foods that make you feel good and that you love.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I really like about it. And same with a lot of clients, I've just found they're able to when they're eating the foods that they like while still hitting their, their micronutrients, a lot of that food shame goes away.
Yes.
So if they want a cookie, you can have the cookie. You don't need to eat 10 because it's not a cheat meal. You can have one cookie. And if you want one tomorrow, you could have a cookie tomorrow too. It's just choices, making other choices to make sure that you're getting the nutrients that you need as well.
Totally. And I feel like you can just make have little hacks that you have throughout the day. Like if you're like, hey, I'm making cookies tonight and I think I'm going to have a cookie, you can just make sure that you're filling other meals up with micronutrients and whatever you need to do to hit your targets.
Yes. Yeah.
And just to touch on it a little bit, what we usually do for those of you listening for our clients is we'll start people out with more so like a calorie and a protein goal and have them aim for a certain number of servings for fruits and vegetables. And then once they get pretty good at hitting their calories and their protein, then we may introduce more specific fat and carb targets and kind of work your way up from there. So you also can kind of have even more flexibility. And then another thing that I think we should go over is just the pros and cons between flexible dieting versus doing meal plans. Because I don't know about you guys, do you have some clients who are doing meal plans, or do you have everyone for the most part on flexible dieting plans?
Mine are all flexible dieting. I don't have any just meal plans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have done like a couple meal plans for clients to start just to give them ideas, but they soon learn pretty fast what they should be doing.
Well, and we have our ebook, we have an ebook that has, I think, 50 meal plans. And sometimes people are like, can you make me a meal plan? I'm like, you should just look at this. Because if you look at 50 different meal plans, it's going to give you a bunch of ideas on how to make it work for yourself. My general rule for clients is I want them to figure out the flexible dieting first as almost like an education course.
Yeah.
And then when and if they can do that, then we can discuss meal plans. Because to me, the flexible dieting, one of the biggest pros of flexible dieting is learning what foods are going to help you get enough protein or enough vitamin A or enough vitamin C. I think carbs and fats are a little bit more self-explanatory and easy for people to hit, but unless you've actually taken time to hit 100 grams of protein each day, most people just eating naturally are falling way short.
Yeah.
And having me give them a meal plan, I don't want my clients to be codependent on me or dependent on me to tell them what to eat for the rest of their lives. So
I want them to learn, to be able to.
I want them to demonstrate that knowledge, and then even then, if they still want to do meal plans, once you know how to do flexible dieting, it's really easy to essentially create a meal plan for yourself. Just by going into you just go into my Fitness Pal and plan a day of eating that hits your nutrition targets. And that's a meal plan that you could follow for multiple days. So,
I will say that I am going to start implementing with my athletes specific intra or post nutrition. So I'm going to give them specific what they need to be. I'll give them a variety, but a very more specific, because I know that hasn't been optimized, and that's really important. So
I'll do that. I'll give people like their targets, and then I give them like refeed day targets and tell them how many grams of carbs I want to have them pre and post nutrition, as well as I don't like when I see that a client is getting like all of their protein between 2 meals. Yeah. So sometimes I'll also give them like 4 protein feedings at 30 grams of protein or something like that, if I feel like they need a little bit more direction. So yeah, that is an interesting, it all depends on the client too. Like someone who's just beginning, we don't want to get too complicated, but for someone who's really at the top of their game and they want to get their body to the next level, all of the little details matter so much.
Yeah.
Right.
So some other pros and cons. So another thing with the meal plans, I think that there can be some people who do better with meal plans, not because they're uneducated or because they can't do well with flexible dieting, but maybe they're just really busy and they don't want to be spending as much time thinking about their food every day. For me, the flexibility I get with flexible dieting and being able to eat a different breakfast every day or a different lunch and kind of just choose foods based on what feels good is worth more to me than not having to think about my food. But for some people, they just want to eat and not think about it.
Yeah.
So I think that that's one of the pros of the meal plans. And then it's almost like the pros of the meal plans can also be the cons, because if you're eating the same exact foods every day at the same time, you are getting a lot of the same nutrition every day. So you're going to have very consistent weigh-ins. Mm-hmm. You're getting the same amount of sodium. You're getting the same amount of fiber. You're getting the foods at similar times during the day usually. So I find that people who are eating like that, their weigh-ins are going to have a lot less fluctuations. Whereas those of us who are eating a little bit more flexibly, we're going to have a lot more varied, even just salt intake. Because like if I have more of a sweet breakfast and less salty foods all day, I'm probably going to have a lower weigh-in the next day just because my sodium is just a little bit lower. Same with fiber. If one day you're at 20 and another day you're at 35, and these numbers are varied, that's just food bulk that's sitting in your gut that can throw off your weigh-ins too. So
yeah. And I feel like people who are on meal, I mean, when you are tracking a bunch of different foods, there can be that, what they say, 20% variance or whatever. I mean, hopefully you are picking really accurate options for all of your food choices. But if you're kind of all over the place all the time, it can leave more room for some error in there. And so meal plans are very, very consistent, and you're able to get, a more consistent reading all around. And it's just a little bit, more consistent than, but if you're careful enough, and I feel like, I mean, I would assume you guys are probably the same, but like when I'm prepping, I keep most of my meals pretty the same most of the time. And it's really just like that dinner meal that you kind of switch out. But I mean, for me, I don't know. I eat, most of my meals are pretty repetitive. So, it's just, I mostly stay flexible with like maybe 1 or 2 meals a day. And then other than that, everything else is kind of the same.
I have like 3 breakfasts, 3 lunch, 3 snacks that
are like the same macros.
Yeah. But like, it's like, what do I feel like today? And sometimes maybe I am not as consistent with my training time. Sometimes I train at 9 a.m. Sometimes I train at 1. Sometimes I train at 5. So I think that really makes my meals vary a lot, because I want to have a good amount of carbs before my training. So if I'm not training until 4 because I have class or whatever, I might do a low carb breakfast and like a low carb lunch, so that I can have a lot of carbs before my workout. But I mean, like my daily carbs right now are 135. So I have to be pretty
careful.
But I did want to say one more thing on the consistency thing. Another thing that can happen though on that is if you are eating, because I know some coaches give like a meal plan at the beginning of prep, and then they use that same exact meal plan the entire prep, and they just start taking a little bit away from it. When you're doing it like that, especially never changing the meal plan, here you are really consistent. So your weigh-ins may be really consistent, but also you're not getting very much variety in your diet at all. So you're going to be a lot more vulnerable to having deficiencies in your nutrition, your minerals, your vitamins, a lot of these trace nutrients. When you're changing your food around a lot and eating more variety, you're just going to be covering your bases more. Right. So it's almost
and be dealing with less food sensitivities, because that's how people get really bad food sensitivities when all they're eating is chicken and tilapia. And then they're like, oh, ground turkey makes me feel bloated. I'm like, why should that make you feel bloated? I mean, can cause that.
I think it then also leads into, people do that. So they have a strict meal plan all week, right? And then they get a cheat meal. So what do? They go insane on the cheat meal and eat everything in sight. I remember when I was doing a meal plan, I had a free meal. And I ate so much, like I would eat in just not a good amount. And then it just makes you I think meal plans maybe make you obsess about food a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think like with what you were saying, Carrie, before, we're all able to incorporate still like foods that we love. And so, like you were saying, you eat like a lot of the same foods in your off season as you do in prep. It makes it makes you less food focused, and it makes you be able to like transition out of prep a lot easier, because it's now like a part of you, it's not like, oh, this is prep mode. Oh, this is off season mode. It's just kind of all together. It's just a little bit less,
And with mine, if I'm having cravings, I always find a way to work them or something like them into my food in prep. And that's one of the biggest things with flexible dieting. Whereas if I felt like I only could eat these meals that were on my meal plan, then suddenly this like little thing, like a cookie, starts like eating you for like it's just like eating away at you how bad you want it. And that's what creates these uncontrollable feelings where it doesn't really matter what it is. Even if I wanted pizza, if I can't go have a piece of Pizza Hut pizza right now, then maybe I get like a high fiber tortilla and put pizza sauce on it and turkey pepperonis and cheese and vegetables and make like it's not the same, but as far as my brain's concerned, it scratches the itch. I can do it, fit it into my macros. I have to be a little bit more creative, but by the time I finish prep, I don't have this like, I know some people, I don't know if you guys do this. I don't think you do, but I get worried when I see people who have like full albums of like hundreds and hundreds of food items that they're like taking photos of in prep because they're just food porn. Have you never seen this?
No.
Where they'll like watch food shows, or they like get really obsessed with food where they're like fantasizing about food and they're
I
do you know what I'm talking about?
When I was, I love baking, so this isn't totally out of my, like, we love watching like Kids Baking Championship and like all those shows. Yeah.
Well, I don't I would way of judgment.
When I do it in my cardio. So when I was doing 2.5 hours of cardio, I literally would be on Pinterest and Instagram, and I would just be looking. I was just torturing myself.
Yeah.
And now looking back, I'm like, but for me, I realized like it's because I was eating because I was on that strict meal plan. I didn't have a variety, and it's not good. A lot of people just still do it too, and
and the psychological thing, like you said, there's problems here because if we're eating meal plan all week and then doing the cheat meal on the weekend, there's a lot of problems here, even with language, with like the cheat meal, and then also not being allowed to have everything all week, and then when you do have it, having it in excess.
Yeah.
You start habits.
You froze up on us, Linz.
Like brain starts firing in a certain way where we associate certain things with we associating a little bit of a out with. Oh, me, you're frozen. Am I frozen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
There you go. Yes.
You're totally frozen.
Was that okay? Todd can edit all that out. Don't worry.
I don't really know where did I go blank. I was like talking and both of you were so still. I was like, either I'm frozen or they're really into what I'm saying. But.
I think you're talking about saying how the psychology about like obsessing, like the even having it be a cheat meal is.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And the psychological component there of like doing a meal plan all week and then on the weekends, now you get to have all of this food. You kind of wire your brain to anytime you get to have a treat, you need to have extra of the treat.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you can't have it tomorrow, right? So it's like all or nothing. Like I need to fit everything in my pantry in my mouth because I'm never going to get it again.
Exactly.
Well, and I swear it's like a survival, like it's like our survival instincts like coming through, if
you're starving and you
literally like kind of starving yourself, and then like you're finally given the chance to eat, and then you just want to like eat as much as possible. I mean, it makes sense,
Well, and it's interesting too, because a lot of these programs that are built like this, where there's absolutely no exceptions all week and then cheat meal on the weekends, it's like, okay, well, so say on that cheat meal, which we all have seen people, it's not like you go get a steak and potatoes for most people. It's like an appetizer, a meal, a dessert. It's like a 2,000 to 3,000 calorie meal.
Yeah.
It's not a regular size meal. And it's like, wouldn't it make a little bit more sense to just put like 150 of your calories every day as something that you enjoy and do that every day instead of having a 3,000 calorie day on Friday? Like,
and better for digestion too. It's like when you pound that much food, I mean, that causes a lot of inflammation in your gut and everything. I mean,
and your face, you wake up and you're swollen,
it's just like, let's put that food towards prioritizing your workouts. And like, I mean, you're going to burn more throughout the whole week, having more food, your NEAT's going to go up, your performance in the gym is going to go up by having that extra 150, 200 calories,
Yeah.
And also when you wake up after that cheat meal and have all of those feelings like you described, Carrie, then your brain starts being like, oh, when I eat pizza, this bad thing happens. So you start thinking pizza is bad. And it's like, well, no, pizza's not bad. It's because you ate a pizza.
Yeah.
Like
the entire pizza. I've even before when I did do meal plans, or if I do, I'd ask the client what their favorite thing was. So is it ice cream or is it wine or whatever it is? And so our first like 4 weeks working together, I would put that in their meal plan. So every night they could have 1 scoop of ice cream, or every night they could have, a half glass of wine or something. So it wasn't, they were getting, or maybe instead of doing like regular ice cream, like full fat ice cream, we would do like Enlightened or Halo Top or something like that. So that, or if it's a piece of Dove chocolate, they get a piece of Dove chocolate every night. So they're not depriving themselves. And then slowly they can be like, okay, well, I don't really need it tonight.
Well, and it just makes portion sizes so much more consistent in general. I think the more you're able to have things, the less power they have over you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know what experience you guys have had, but for me personally, any prep I've done flexible dieting, I have had a pretty easy transition back to normal life. Whereas when I did meal plans that were my early preps that were meal plans that were really strict, I had a really hard time coming out of that diet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was like obsessing over my post-show meal. I like feel like the first week after I could just never stop eating because I wanted to taste all of these things I hadn't tasted in so long.
That makes me think of, I actually didn't even, so Sophia, I hung out with my friend last night, and she's like, hey, so what are we doing post-show? Like, where do you want to go? And I was like, I haven't even thought of it. Like, I don't really care. Like, that's not the number one thing on my, like, I'm like, I don't know, like, whatever, get like some potato fries. Like, yeah.
My thing is alcohol. I always want like a margarita or wine because I like to enjoy drinks, and I don't do it in prep. So
it's funny. Every time I'm prepping, I'm like, I always, I'll have cravings come, and I'm like, in my off season, or like, I don't know, even a couple weeks post show, I'm like, I never even crave these foods anymore, because by that time your body's not in that like starving kind of, state. And so you're like, man, I never even crave these foods on a normal given day. Like, why am I craving that right now? I mean, I know why now. And then it actually makes it easier to not even really pay attention to the cravings. Cause I'm like, oh, Chantal, it's cause you need to, you're just low on carbs right now. And then it makes me a lot I don't obsess about things. I used to like scroll Pinterest and be like, oh my gosh, I want that. I want that. And I don't even do that anymore. I just
I
don't.
just remember the way it makes me feel. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
you don't want, like, it's not worth it.
I know. Yeah.
Bite, but you don't need like
I don't even like day of show, when you're kind of like having like lots of candy or chips to kind of try and, get that last fill out, or the sodium, or, quick carbs. I feel
I've
like
never done that. I've never
Really?
okay, well, me, that's
No.
what I got to do. And, by the time the show's done, I'm not even craving anything at all because I've had
Big
all that
salad.
stuff.
Most
Yeah.
of my
Big
last
salad. I wanted a big ass salad with
Yes.
all
like
the
with
yummy
ranch.
toppings.
Yeah, with ranch.
Ranch.
Yeah,
Oh,
give me
you don't
all
even put it on the side. You can just put it on top with the eggs, bacon.
I know.
But yeah, Chantel, I have to fill out a lot on show day too, or at least I had in the past, because I'm like so tall and long that I have to really like make my muscles look full. So I'm the same as you, candy, like
Yeah.
so many carbs that day, and it's just like
And even ones you don't even really want to eat. It's just like, I don't even like to eat this candy. I'd rather eat this, but I got to do this. And then,
like, yeah, I'd rather eat like chocolatey.
yes.
Yes. So when it starts getting the gummy candy, I'm not that into the gummy candy, but it's so sugary that like that or honey or whatever is like
Yes.
better. That I could relate to that feeling of, yeah, again, I always just like after my shows want a margarita. So for me, that's the thing. I was going to ask though, so when you guys are doing your refeeds now, are you including some of those like quote unquote like cheat type foods to kind of scratch that itch, or are you keeping it more in line with the rest of your foods?
So I decided that I'm going to keep it pretty from here on out. And maybe it is just because I'm pre-cycle and I'm not feeling, but
I do think we do that. We start looking, we're like, oh, if I wouldn't have ate those fries, then probably I wouldn't be retaining water right now. I can't eat fries anymore.
So I've been trying to keep it pretty consistent. I did like Todd's birthday was on Tuesday. So I made this delicious chocolate and vanilla cake. And so I literally like weighed the entire cake. I put all the ingredients in, I weighed it, and I gave myself a little sliver of it. And it was delicious. And it wasn't, and I woke up the next day and I was down like 4 ounces or something. Like it was, but I do a little bit. Maybe like my treat to myself is on my refeed day, I always have a Starbucks. I'll get a non-fat latte with like a pump of toffee nut and some whipped cream or something. So I'll do a little bit. But I am trying, we're also trying to figure out my refeeds right now, what's going to work best for me, fiber intake. So I am being a little bit stricter with those and just trying to structure them a little bit right now.
So you're more focused on, you're like at the point in your career and your prep where you're able to kind of be like outcome focused and not.
Yeah. I've changed that mindset to where I'm like, I want to get the best result. And I'm an athlete. So I love food, but food's not my focus. Like food tasting, like I really want to make sure I'm getting the best bang for my buck at the gym, just fueling my body efficiently. And right now everything tastes good to me. So I don't really like everything tastes good. So
Isn't it funny how that happens? I was eating like a bowl. I mean, you guys seen what I've been eating, but I was just literally eating like ground beef and hummus and like all these veggies. And I was like, this is the best thing I've ever had. And I was like looking at my husband, like, this is so good. And I think I had waited too long to eat. So I was really hungry, but I was like, I can't even tell you how good this ground beef is. And he's like, okay, like whatever.
That's so funny.
Even like grapes. Like today I was like, you know what? I haven't had grapes forever. And I went and got the big green grapes with strawberries, put a little like fat-free whipped cream. It was so good. It was,
It was yummy.
It's funny how you get like those prep taste buds where your body's just so grateful for food, and I can't tell you how many times like I'll make a pancake and I'm like last night I made my pancake. I had a refeed yesterday and I love my pancakes. So I had my pancakes on my refeeds and they're like as good as a donut in my opinion. But all the time I'm like, hun, I just love my food so much because I have like my food, like I call it my food because it's like my go-to foods, that just bring me so much joy and happiness. And he just laughs all the time, but I love it. Like, it's just, I feel grateful that I love my food, it brings me a lot of joy.
So for
Um,
you, and your answer is that you include more like treaty foods that are higher carbs that you can't fit otherwise, but it's still like pretty similar to what you're eating every day for the most part. You add burgers sometimes.
yeah. I mean, I typically get pretty big refeeds,
Yeah,
so
I was gonna say your refeeds are so much bigger than carrier eyes that you have a
I
lot
know
more.
that I can, yeah. It kind of just depends on like how, like with what Carrie was saying, it's like as you get closer to the show, you start caring less about like wanting to satisfy cravings as like, look, I really want to make sure I'm dialing things in, making sure I'm optimizing digestion, sticking with foods even on a refeed that are going to digest well, because especially if you're trying to pay attention to, how your physique looks the day after, it's just important. Because even if you have like more of a dirty refeed, like you're not necessarily going to gain fat from it, but it might make a difference with how your pictures look and how your waist looks. So yeah, I mean, at this point, being 6 weeks out, yeah, I'm trying to just make sure I'm still sticking with foods that I know are going to digest well. For me, I did take my daughter out on a little mommy daughter date, breakfast date, and they had these like Japanese bubble waffles, and I was like, oh, that's probably pretty. I can guesstimate that and just eat a smaller portion, and I should be fine. And so I did fit that in, and guesstimated that well. But so yeah, it's just kind of like knowing your boundaries at this point, depending on where you're at in prep.
Because I was gonna say I'm not. I guess if things start feeling like they're stalling, I think that always does make you kind of like reassess everything that you're doing. But I'm pretty comfortable at this point. I'm like so measured all the time that usually on my refeed, I have to put some of my refeed carbs around my workout. It's just, if I have them available to me that day, I want to have a bomb ass workout because I'm used to right now just not having the greatest workout. So I'll usually put my refeed day on or before my squat workout because that's my hardest workout right now. Um, and I'll distribute a portion of my refeed carbs around that training. And then usually I do a date night with my husband to kind of just work on to be able to go out together and enjoy something and not get away from my daughter. I'll just say it.
Yeah. Have a long time.
Have
Adult
some fun
time.
with time. And usually what we've been doing lately is I'll order a meal that is very similar to what I might eat at home. So more of like a protein and vegetables or something. And then what we've been doing is going downtown Salt Lake and going somewhere like for dinner that I can get something like that. And then we go for a walk to somewhere else for dessert. So we end up getting like a few thousand steps in between. And then he's just been ordering whatever he wants for desserts because he's training for an endurance race right now and getting like 600 grams of carbs a day. And what I've been doing is it's not exact science, you guys. So, but what I will do is I'll get like decaf coffee and then like sample a few bites of each of his desserts and kind of like guesstimate as well as I can. But it's kind of become just this like fun little like date night activity that we do. And it's been, for me, it's worth it to have a little bit of the unpredictability of it and just do my very, very best to guess. And I usually don't have very much volume and it works out pretty well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like even tonight, we're going over to Todd's family's house to celebrate St. Patrick's Day early, and I made soda bread. And so I'm definitely going to have that with butter. It's got yummy cranberries and raisins and stuff in it. So
making it work.
Yeah.
So like if I were eating out every day, all day for multiple meals, I definitely think I would need to get a little bit more dialed in. I'm interested how you guys do your eating out. But since I do it rarely, maybe once a week, I'm okay with kind of like I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm okay with leaning on my educated guesses and like you did, Chantel, ordering the bubble waffle, tracking as closely as you can, and more importantly, having that moment with your daughter or your husband or whoever. I kind of use it for the performance base, and then also for maintaining my relationships, and then also just for a little bit of like a break. So
yeah. And I feel like, as you become experienced enough with this and experienced with like how you feel after eating a certain amount of calories, like I know how satiated I should feel with, about a 300 to 400 calorie meal or something, depending on the amount of vegetables in it or protein or whatever. You get like this intuitive feel with different meals and foods.
I actually, this week on my refeed day, I had a really crazy day. Where I got like a shirt order in at the gym. I was just on my feet all day doing all this stuff. And I normally get 10,000 steps a day. And that day I got 17,000. But it was also my refeed day. And like, I'm not only doing refeed days just because I want to have more food one of those days. I'm doing those refeed days to give my body extra food. So I was having to kind of rely on those feelings instead. Because instead of being like, I'm eating 1,800, I was like, I need to eat until I normally feel when I get to 1,800 on these refeed days. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Because your activity was was there, so you actually weren't doing that much of a refeed.
So I did a little bit of like mathematic equations to kind of try to figure out a gauge, but I kind of was just like eating and refeeding until I felt that feeling that I've been feeling. And for me that day, it ended up being 2,300 versus like 1,850. So like 450 more calories than I've been refeeding. But the next day I saw a new low, which almost never happens for me after refeed day. So I was like, well, that probably was a good amount, but it's so true, Chantel. You just kind of get to the point that, sometimes it's not always, I don't know, because it wasn't the exact same calories for me. It was just like knowing the feeling of being either in a surplus or at maintenance or in a deficit, and you just can feel it.
And that's something that I tell clients a lot of the time when they go on vacation. And so I have a client who's actually preparing for the Wasatch Warrior right now, Leanne, and she just got back from vacation a week ago. And she was like, I'm not going to be able to weigh out food. And I said, you know what, so before she went into this prep, she was intuitive eating. So that of course was good practice for her. And I was like, hey, and I gave her a diet break during that time. I was like, how you should feel if you are not in a deficit anymore, but not in a surplus. Like you should feel like, that feeling. And she did really well. She did really well. So
I find a lot of clients will lose weight on vacation if they have that good relationship with food.
Yes.
Because they're walking more, they're stressed. Usually it's a stress thing. They're not going to work. They're getting more sleep. Like their body and their mind just has an opportunity to kind of shut down for a couple of days. And it all works out.
When you give them that freedom, so it's like, okay, be mindful, eat one big salad a day, get protein in,
get your water,
movement. When you give them that freedom, they don't then feel like, okay, I'm going to track everything while I'm on my vacation. And then they slip up. They have a piece of cake and then they're like, well, forget it. I'm just going to go, so.
Exactly. Yeah. And building trust in your own self and confidence in yourself goes a long way with anything.
For sure.
Being able to feel like I know what I need to do. Cause it's just the longer you do anything, the better you get at it. But for example, it was like a Friday night when I did that refeed I was talking about. I personally, because I've been doing this a long time, I wasn't like checking in with my coach and being like, hey, I got 17,000 steps. Like, what should I eat? I was able to kind of like go off of my knowledge and make good decisions and then kind of let him know. And then we could adjust if needed. But
our first time competitors, don't do that.
Yeah, check in with us.
You don't have permission to do that.
Yeah. So what else with the nutrition side of things? I feel like we've covered so much good stuff today.
Yeah.
How are you guys having your clients, or are you personally structuring things around workouts within flexible dieting?
Yeah. So I'm going to start doing that more. That's something that I have been doing myself. Obviously, of your meals when you're in a deficit, your most important meals are going to be your pre and post workout meals. Obviously protein's going to be helping with the breakdown of your muscle, repair, growth, and then carbohydrates are your main energy source. So, making sure you have carbs fat's not as much as important, but pre-workout, you should have protein, carbs, and then post-workout, same protein, carbs. Now, depending on when you're working out, like let's say, you want something that your body's going to be able to use, right? So you don't want to eat like a big thing of oatmeal 30 minutes before, because your body's still digesting that. It's not going to have it digested by the time you're at the gym. But like Chantel, I know like you train in the morning, you have a good amount of carbs before you go to bed. So having that oatmeal or something like that, but definitely pre and post. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I do both, and it's not like the traditional advice, but I usually do either oatmeal or a half of a bagel, like an hour before, which is a little slower.
And an hour is enough time. It's like when people are like, having oatmeal and chicken or beef, and they think it's going to digest. By the time they're not getting that energy yet.
Well, I do that. And then I usually have a small serving of something quicker. I actually usually do at our gym, we just have like a little food bar, and I'm like, what I usually do is my oatmeal or my bagel an hour before, and then I'll have a little, like a third of a container of Sour Patch Kids or a banana, either right before or during my workout if I start feeling that low blood sugar feeling, which right now
and when you're in a big deficit like me right now, I'm having about 100, I think this week we adjusted to 125 grams of carbs. Mm-hmm. So I am going to use, performance, this is bodybuilding, emphasis on building. So, I'm going to use a large percentage of my carbs pre and post workout. Mm-hmm. But it's mostly carbs. So then I have fats for later. But yes, it's definitely very important, especially when you're in a deficit.
My carbs, 2/3 of my carbs every day are pre, during, or post my workout.
Yeah.
So I'm doing like 75 to 90 grams of carbs in that window. So I have like 45 left for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So that it is what it is. And same as we were talking about, I'll give clients, if they're to that point, certain numbers that I want them to get in before their training. So it's not all super flexible. It's like flexible. And then the further you get, there's more specific instructions on how to optimize things, kind of is what I do with my clients. Same with you guys.
I feel like the clients that are really in it to, like, they're very dedicated, ready to learn. They love like hearing any way to optimize their training,
Absolutely. Like, and then when you give them that educational piece, like,
they're like,
for instance, I sent her a link and was like, hey, we're going to switch things up. I want you to just read about this or listen to this podcast so you know why. And then she was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Like, I didn't realize like my pre and post workout meals were not good. Yeah. And so learning is fun for them because then they're like, whoa, this is so cool. Like,
and I was going to say sometimes though, there are some clients who are asking about some of the more finer details. And I'm like, girl, I need you to drink your water.
Yeah, that is true. If they're not consistent with those things, you don't even need to worry about that.
Like, how many carbs should I have pre-workout? And I'm like, I really need you to bring your protein from 50 to 100. Like, so sometimes I think people they're trying to like look at all of these puzzle pieces and it's overwhelming them. And you're like, we need to start with this piece and then this piece and then this piece, and it all builds on one another. So,
and isn't it beautiful, like watching the clients who have been with you for like 6 months and being able to see like each month you feel like they've grown and it's just such a good reminder of how when you do this process the right way, it's this gradual baby steps with lots of different things. It's like working on the basics and then you bring in more of the details. And I love when a client just grows like that. And when they see it too, and they're like, man, I am just still learning so much. I'm like, I'm just so proud of you.
And it never stops. If
it never stops.
They're going to continue growing and changing. Like, for me, this isn't, and I know this is something all three of us talk about a lot. We've talked about it on these episodes. It's about finding something that you want to continue fine tuning for years and years and enjoying it. Until you can find that, it's just, I actually saw, I just reposted this on my Instagram today from Alan Argon. He's a researcher. I don't know if you guys know him, but he was like, it was a magic pill and it was like nutrition and diet. And then it was like the next magic pill and it was a bigger pill and it was like nutrition you enjoy and training you enjoy. But it was still just like harping on that. If you can figure out something that you like, continue learning about it. It really is basic, but loving it goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, any other thoughts on prep, nutrition, anything?
I don't think so.
Just make it fun, like find things that you enjoy. So it's not such a hard, like just find things you enjoy and be smart. Hit
And
those macros, micros, and then enjoy your food.
Enjoy the process. You have time to continue changing, continue growing. We don't have to do it all right now.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, guys. I hope this week goes great in prep.
Okay.
See
Let's
you
all
at 4 weeks out.
Yeah.
We'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
alongside.